Okay, as I have said before, anyone who knows me, anyone who has had more than like 3 conversations with me, anybody who has been in a room with me for probably at least a half hour knows that if someone brings up a movie or a television show or music or some kind of thing in the media like that I know anything about, I will continue to talk about it for about as long as you will let me. I can't explain it. I have so much to say. So instead of making a Facebook post every time I want to talk about an episode of, Supernatural or Game of Thrones or a new movie that comes out or a new album that comes out, I figured why not take the opportunity and just say what I'm thinking. Because I have the issue every time I go to write a Facebook post or write a small comment about something is that I realize I'm writing a 5-paragraph essay and it's impossible for me to say everything that I want to say in one small contained Facebook post that no one's gonna read. So here we are, that's what brings us to this. So today I'm going to be talking about the film Get Out that premiered recently in the United States. It was directed by Jordan Peele, who most people probably know as half of the comedy duo Key and Peele. If you don't know who they are, give their content a watch. It's hysterical. They've done brilliant things. But even more brilliant, I think, is Peele's movie Get Out. Like, it's so good. I saw this movie and I knew there was a lot of hype around it, and I ride hype trains, not gonna lie, I get real excited about things, but this movie did not disappoint. Like, I was really afraid it was gonna disappoint me in the same way The Dark Knight Rises disappointed me. I'm sorry, get over it. So one of the first things I want to talk about is the fact that this is a horror film that doesn't rely on jump scares. I think there are maybe 2 or 3 jump scares that I can think of, but like they happened and they were warranted and I got kind of freaked out and then I was good. And I was like, okay, like it keeps you on your toes. It's that kind of way of like getting your heart rate going again. But that wasn't the whole movie. Like sometimes horror films are just jump scares over and over and over again, and it's kind of like you're paying $7.50 to go to a movie theater and have someone shout boo at you like every 7 minutes, and it gets tiring. But this movie like set itself apart from movies that have come out recently like The Conjuring and Insidious and Annabelle and Lights Out and all those movies, which I'm not saying is anything wrong with those movies. I can talk about those movies. I mean, Annabelle was a little I can talk about those movies just like I can talk about this one. There's not, I'm not saying that those are bad movies, but those movies know what they are. They know that they have jump scares in them. They're not pretending not to. But this movie, yeah, it had a couple, but it had so much more. Like that wasn't its content. So it was really like fresh to go see a movie and know that I'm being disturbed and I'm uncomfortable, but I'm not, screaming purely because someone's face popped up in the screen all of a sudden and then was gone. That was nice. And while, yes, this movie is considered a horror movie, I've heard it be considered a horror comedy, which there's definitely comedy in it, which we'll get to that in a second. This movie is going to be lumped in with the movies that I've mentioned, and yes, because it is the same genre-ish of movie, but it's very important to remember that this is a different kind of movie. And I hope this is a new kind of movie that I see more of, because I want more of it. Another great thing that this movie did was there were several times when you as an audience member are sort of questioning what you just saw and sort of questioning like, did that just happen? Why did this person say that the way they did? Which really makes you kind of relate and empathize with Chris, the main character, because he the whole time is seeing things happen and interpreting things, and like he's taking it one way, but then other people are saying like, no, that's not, this is happening because of this, and it makes you kind of realize why he doesn't just like leave immediately, because you too were kind of confused because everything seems like well intended even though it's clearly making everyone in the room very uncomfortable. We know that he doesn't want to seem crazy and Chris doesn't want to seem like he's just freaking out in a house full of white people because he really likes his girlfriend and he can tell that it's important to her and he wants to be there for her, so he's trying to stick it out. So we relate to that and we empathize with him in that stance, but at the same time, something in the back of your mind is going like, Another awesome thing this movie does is, like I said, it's considered a horror comedy. It's a horror comedy in the sense that there are moments when you laugh. Something funny just happens. Because life has funny things, and this movie does a really good job of putting the funny things that just happen into a terrifying situation. And I think that makes the movie seem more real because it doesn't seem to be taking itself too seriously. Another thing I want to talk about is Peele's use of passive racism, which is amazing. He didn't set out to make a movie painting white people as like these crazy racist supremacists that just want to do horrible things to African Americans that are brought into their home. He did not go out to do that, and he didn't do that. But what he did do was an amazing job at showing us the passive racism that African Americans and any race, really, any minority goes through on a daily basis. You know, the entire party scene when Chris is meeting all of these older white people, and they're saying things to kind of be like, yeah, like, let's talk and like let's interact and let's find something we can talk about that's not about race, but they kind of make it about race. And it did a good job of showing us like white people's need to kind of reassure themselves that they're not racist, because there's a bunch of like well-intended like comments that seem great, but then you're like, ugh, that was racist. Ugh. And he did it so well, and it's so not shoved in your face. Like, it's so not the main plot of the movie. It's like the underlying thing. It's the thing that's making Chris uncomfortable in a normal sense, but then there's the creepy, awful thing that's actually going on that's making him uncomfortable in the heightened sense, in the horror sense. That's what keeps this from not just being a movie about a black guy at a white girl's house. It's a movie about a really creepy thing that I'm not gonna spoil it. Go watch it. All in all, this movie, actors were fantastic, directing was incredible. You were disturbed, you were uncomfortable, you were able to laugh. It just did what I wanted this movie to do, and it did more. And it was awesome. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you go see Get Out, because it was so good. Like, so good. So that is my stream of consciousness about the movie Get Out. So yeah, thank you for watching. Let me know what you thought of it, if you've seen it. If you haven't, go watch it. And I want to have a conversation with people about it. I loved this movie. I think it was awesome. And yeah, so bye. Thanks for listening.